Beloved, I am so glad to have you here again today. So, as promised, I told you I would share part 2 of my deepest, darkest secret with you. And so here it is. So I shared with you last week, part 1 of my deepest, darkest secrets is I've been using cannabis most days for the last 25 years. Obviously, I quit during pregnancy and breastfeeding and through a few jobs and different things like that. But generally speaking, it has been something that I've enjoyed as a part of my life for a long time. Now, part 2 of this deepest, darkest secret is a little more tough to talk about, a little harder to admit to, and a little bit harder for other people to listen to. I think at the end of the last video, I asked you if you still love me, even though I shared that deepest, darkest secret with you. And some of you left comments and let me know that you can, but let me assure you, many people did not. It's hard for people to accept that, especially openly, because once they openly say, hey, that's okay with me, then they start thinking about, wait, is it okay for me? Is it okay for those I love? What about for that person that I judged harshly or treated poorly because of that behavior? Was it okay for them? Do I still love them? Do I not still love them? So it brings up a lot of questions. And that leads me to my second deepest, darkest secret, or part 2, I should say, which is many of you know my husband is Black. My daughter then, who is a product of my husband and I, is half Black, half white. And so we're an interracial family. We've been together for over a decade. This is 10 years married next month that we have, and we were together for some years before that. But honestly, if you knew me as a young person, especially throughout college, you probably would have known me as someone who had a lot of Black friends, even possibly more Black friends than white friends. And, I thought of myself as very progressive, and I just liked Black folks. That's who I spent my time with, right? I didn't think very much of it. And after I got to starting on the Heart Habits is when I really began to look deeply at all of the many things in my life that I held on to, that I had shame around, that I had things I needed to work through, right? Challenges I need to work through. And one of those topics that came up in our greater society as a whole, and also in my role as at the time, soon to be mother to a young Black woman, and that was racism. And was I racist? So I've told my story before, and I've mentioned to a lot of people that the way that I began my journey to kind of learn about racism in America was to start with the premise that I am racist, and to go about learning and discovering and finding out if that was true, but starting on that premise that it is true. And so I could see what kind of challenges might come up for me. And here's the deep, dark secret is it did not take me long at all. I mean, really within moments from the time I said, okay, I'll just say I'm racist and see what information I uncover from that perspective. Within moments, I knew for sure I was racist. And a lot of you ask more about that, right? Because if you knew me again, you wouldn't have thought of me as a racist person. I was probably that person that you thought of as like, oh, she likes Black people more than she likes white people. And honestly, that was true for many years of my life. I've now come to a more medium place of understanding that humanity is humanity, and there are different cultures that have strengths and weaknesses. And there's some things that are going on, right? And so I thought that when I said I'm a racist, I would find evidence to show I'm not a racist, because I grew up in North Idaho, home of the Aryan nations, right? I'm used to calling racists those people that really, really are overt about it, right? The KKK that run around with their white hat, the Aryan nations who skin their head, who shave their head bald and, wear a lot of regalia to talk about their white pride, their white Christian brotherhood, and how, they don't want to be, whatever, diluted or contaminated by Negro, Black, Brown, etc. blood. So I was around these very overt racists, and it was very easy to separate myself then from them. Like, I obviously am not one of them. I'm not running around. I don't hate Black people. I love Black people, in fact. But what I found out over time is that racism is not an admission. It's not I don't like Black people. It's not an admission of feeling negatively about a group of people based on their race. Racism is really an omission, right? Racism is red line policies that kept Black people out of neighborhoods that were growing and succeeding and white. Racism is when there's 13% of the US population is Black, but only 0.01% of your friend group is Black, right? And 30% of the prison population is Black. That's racism. It's an omission of the people who should be consulted and should be listened to and should be advised with on the best way to resolve these problems not being at the table at all. Racism is when air blow dryers in bathrooms don't work on Black folks because nobody in those laboratories, as they were developing those technologies, was Black or was in a position to say, hey, this doesn't work on my skin, right? Racism is a school to prison pipeline for young Black girls and Black boys. Racism is suspension and discipline levels 30 and 40 times higher for young Black girls than it is for white girls or Asian kids. This is racism. It's omission. It's omission of humans in our society from decision making and power holding in our same society. That's what racism is. And bigotry and prejudice are also things. And those were some of the things that I also found in my hunt for racism within my own mind and within my own heart, within my own life, and ultimately within my society, right? And so that's deep, dark secret number 2 is I am racist. I am working actively to be anti-racist, but the only way to do that really was to first start in the mirror and look at myself, deal with my own prejudices, my own biases, my own defense mechanisms that would not allow me, that would go up and try to keep me from hearing truths that might be kind of hard to hear. And there you have it. My deepest, darkest secret. I'm racist. Don't want to be anymore. Don't want you to be anymore either. So if you're someone who has thought to yourself, well, I'm definitely not racist, then drop me a comment below. Tell me that. Say it out loud. Or maybe drop a comment and say, I'd like to learn more. If you're ready to drop the defenses and see what might be lurking under the surface in your mind, in your life, in your sphere of influence. Either way, know that I love you, just like I love me, just like I love my white father, my white brother, my white mom and sisters. And we will create a new world together. I love you.